Is your home an ADT home? If not, you have to get ADT and help protect against break-ins, fire, and carbon monoxide. For a limited time, get ADT's lowest rate starting at just $28.99 a month from the most trusted name in home security. Go to ADT.com/podcast to take advantage of ADT's lowest rate.
With 36-month monitoring contract, early termination and installation fees apply. Excludes taxes and fees. Applies to traditional services only. Certain markets excluded. Licenses available at ADT.com.
Listen up, people. We got a big favor to ask, and we promise it won't take too much of your time. You know our show's supported by some fantastic sponsors, right? Well, we'd love to hear your feedback. Head to ESPNPodcastStudy.com and fill out a short, anonymous survey. That's it. We swear. No more. Again, that's ESPNPodcastStudy.com.
This is the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
We are off and running on a Thursday. Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests will join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. I have to say, Cliff did a great job there blending the music in with the roar of the crowd. I wasn't sure when the roar of the crowd stopped and the music started.
Yeah. Well, he's
nicely done.
Pro. Does that well.
He gave me like, why are you talking to me like that?
Yeah, he's like, it's something I do every day. I'm used to being this great.
Exactly. He's a pro in the know. He goes with Lowe's.
You don't acknowledge my greatness every day or don't do it today. Basically is what he did. Thanks, Cliff. We appreciate
Thank you very much.
Fine.
Nice,
now
Cliff.
you get the apology. Now it's like Phil Mickelson. I don't want it now. I don't want it now.
There you go.
Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo here with you. We finally got Phil Mickelson to apologize.
We did.
We wore him down. And it's fine.
Listen.
I, for one, feel way better now.
We're going to talk yet again about another athlete and an apology for something. This obviously not the apology we've heard in the past for what some of the transgressions that have happened. This
in the sport of golf.
On the green of at a tournament. But we'll certainly get into it.
Yep.
More World Cup. We'll have an update of the scores
that
are going on. More big games today for the staff and for you and me and Junior and our teams, our snake draft, who's winning, who's losing. The NBA draft tonight. We're leaving for Pinehurst after the show today.
We played a little golf yesterday.
Our leadership retreat. Our winners were already there posting. There you go. Leadership retreat. Our winners are already posting their pictures. They're down in Pinehurst. This is going to be awesome.
How are they down there already and we're here?
I know. That's exactly right.
How does that work? This is our thing.
Isn't that the truth?
It's our idea.
They're already
there, and we're still here.
Unbelievable.
Seriously.
So yesterday we got a little practice round in. Mike and myself and Mike Periano were out golfing. Trey, you
is that
were there.
The father of the
father of Alex
world-renowned Alex Periano?
Unfortunately, Alex was not able to join us as he was working. But and then
forget him.
You jumped in with us. So we got a good little practice round in.
Little taste.
You know what? You hit the ball really well.
Oh, that's very nice.
Now, again, you play every day, so you should.
Correct.
Okay.
I have no excuse if I don't.
You have the smoothest, easiest swing.
Ernie Els, baby.
And it goes very down the straight pretty well.
Yeah.
You do a nice job.
Hey, well, I did get that one on video of you that you absolutely crushed.
Yeah. Good timing. That's all you need is timing. We're playing a scramble this weekend. That's all we need. Timely shots.
Best ball, baby.
When the lights shone brightly, I came through there, unlike Devin in the first round of the world record attempt.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Devin
I'd like to see. Now, Devin, you said he was pretty good with the wedge.
I'd
like to see him with the rest of the bag.
Yeah.
Devin, where are you? Is it just your wedge game that's strong, or is it everything?
I mean, put up half your paycheck and you can find out.
Hey, now. I think I set a bad precedent.
Ring the bell.
Well, let me just say, after watching you in the challenge, I accept.
Yeah.
Okay.
Secure that bag, Devin.
Yes,
Stay
there
Wingo.
we go.
Let's go. All right. So we got a lot to get to. Let's start it like we always do, sometimes occasionally with what's trending. Okay. 2018 NBA Draft tonight, 7 on ESPN, ESPN Radio, and the ESPN app. And the Suns are set to pick number 1 overall for the first time in franchise history, and it feels like DeAndre Ayton's going to be that guy.
Yeah, it does feel like that. It feels like, Doncic was always talked about at 2, but Sacramento could be Marvin Bagley III looking there. So would Atlanta get Doncic? We'll see. Some notes here. The 76ers, they have the most picks of any team. They have 4 in the second round. The Hawks do have 3 first-round picks. Clippers are the only team. They have 2 lottery picks with 12 and 13, and you do have the Thunder, the Pistons, the Rockets, Pelicans, Heat, and Raptors with no first-round picks at all. So they'll sit around and do a little bit of watching unless there's some wheeling and dealing that is going on, which we know always happens. So it'll be interesting where that goes tonight.
Yeah, going to be very interesting. I think the one, and you mentioned the name with the most volatility up there is Luka Doncic, just because we've heard him rumored with such a range of these teams based on what he offers. I know Mina Kimes, ESPN the Magazine senior writer, going to join you guys at 9:30 today. Wrote the article on Luka Doncic, got to spend some time with him, so certainly could offer some insight as to what NBA teams are going to get with this player. It's just a matter of who decides to take that leap, because we've got all these big, long, athletic bodies that we're not sure how they fit into this version of the NBA right now or how they can make themselves fit. He's a very easy one to project.
Trey, we know Luka's going to be near the top, though, even if it's a couple. Trey Young seems to be the guy who, all of a sudden, the latest I saw, he was out of the top 10, maybe at number 12.
I'll be shocked if that happens, right?
I would as well. They're saying kind of the first guy of the Steph Curry mold, that just that pure shooter like that from what he did in college as a freshman. But he seems to be the word volatile one of how high could he go and where could he drop to. That's the one I think to keep an eye on to see if he goes down the board a little bit.
Well, it is interesting, especially when we'll play some sound from Jay Billis and the actual person he's comparing him to. And remember, the person he's comparing him to was 2 years older than him when he went into the draft. Mm-hmm. So we'll get to what Jay had to say about him in a little bit. But I agree with you. The Trae Young thing is interesting if it's indeed going down the way they say it's going down right now. Meanwhile, with 2 outs and a runner on in the bottom of the ninth, Yankee slugger Giancarlo Stanton did it again, and the Yankees continue to win in dramatic fashion.
And the pitch. Driven deep to left center field. There it goes. Signature moment. See ya. A 2-run home run. A walk-off. And the Yankees win 7-5.
A huge comeback, as that was the call at the end of the game from Michael Kay and the YES Network, and, of course, 98.7 ESPN New York.
And certainly the great numbers that go with it because it's baseball. Stanton's his 4th career walk-off home run, first since 2014. His walk-off came on an 0-2 count. He entered the game 3 of 26, which is a 115 batting average, with 1 home run and 18 strikeouts on an 0-2 count. Didn't let the 0-2 count go away here against a Seattle team that had the lead in this division, is battling Houston for it, and Seattle entered the game 30-4 when leading after the 7th inning. Didn't go so well this time around.
Yeah, I mean, they're going up against the comeback Yankees. This is what this team has done all season, which is come from behind and win in dramatic fashion like this. And we talked to Gordon Damer from 98.7 ESPN New York on First and Last this morning.
Gordo!
And he talked about, for Gary Sanchez, for Giancarlo Stanton, these guys that are starting to catch fire now, had intermittent starts to the season. It's been great. And for Stanton, it's an awesome moment for a guy that struggled and had to wear a lot of that in that New York market early on. But the consistency of Aaron Judge this season, and Aaron Boone talked before the year about what a battler at the plate this guy is and how he wants to really be competitive in every at-bat. He had an RBI double earlier in that game that really kind of started that trickle and that comeback that just kind of indicates what he's been to this team all year, which last year, after his up and downs, has been a steadying force, a guy they can really rely on.
And by the way, because you're resplendent in Yard Goats gear from head to toe, I'm really digging your baseball take even more. I mean,
that's very
nice. Seems more genuine
Go
if you're
ahead,
not watching.
Give the Yard Goats some love.
Yeah, no, listen, shout out to the Hartford Yard Goats, our local team right here. I want to make sure I get this right. AA ball team, the AA affiliate of the Colorado Rockies. And for the second straight year, these guys voted the number 1 AA ballpark in the country. Best ballpark for the second year in a row. They become the first minor league venue to win this prestigious award in consecutive years. Wow. Give it up for Dunkin' Donuts Park.
You know what? It's a great park.
It is a great
park.
Really
is a great park.
You can play the sound all you want because you mentioned Aaron Boone. Aaron Boone, after the game, the manager of the Yankees, basically said it's living proof that not all home runs are equal with what Giancarlo Stanton did.
I don't know what it ended up being, but that ball was absolutely scalded. When you hit a line drive, that's a base hit to center for me. Giancarlo hits it and starts celebrating at home plate, knowing it's going to be off of something hard out beyond center field. He's just, he's a different animal.
All I could think of was Tommy Boy. I'm sorry about your car, but that was awesome.
That was a screamer.
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
and Stanton's walk-off is what everybody's talking about. It's brought to you by Lowe's. Pros in the know. Start with Lowe's. Go to lowesforpros.com for details. And here's what everybody isn't talking about, and perhaps we should be talking about. Mike Trout will play in his 1,000th career game tonight against the Blue Jays. Not against the Blue Jays, his 1,000th career game. It happens to be against the Blue Jays.
There you go.
He has more home runs, walks, and WAR, our favorite stat.
Yeah, it is.
Our favorite baseball second special stat. WAR, wins above replacement, in his first 1,000 career games than the all-time leader in those categories, and home runs, walks, and WAR. Barry Bonds had in his first 1,000 games.
I love the note from Jeff Passan of Yahoo. The Mike Troutest thing ever is he's on pace to having the single greatest season in baseball history. He hasn't won American League Player of the Week once this year, or last year, or in 2016. Last time he won was in July of 2015. Why? He's just that good every week, and the expectation is he's supposed to be that good, so he's not going to win that award. This dude is just quietly playing as one of the great. Some are saying he has Hall of Fame numbers right now, but he hasn't played the 10 years that you need to be in the Hall of Fame. It's incredible what he's doing at this point.
Good for an on-base percentage right now in the last 8 games of 784. In the last 8 games, he has hit 696.
Is that good?
Reached base in 29 of 37 at-bats with 16 hits, 11 walks, a hit by pitch, and drew a catcher's interference during that span. This guy is basically unstoppable at the plate. You are going to struggle to keep this guy from getting on base one way or another. He's a machine. He's an absolute animal, and he's like, you know what we used to associate all the positive memories of Kawhi Leonard?
Yes.
When you just can't stop him, he's just going to look you dead in the face. There's not going to be a ton of emotion, and he's just going to wear you out.
But
I only look at one stat when I look at Mike Trout. 3 games playing the playoff. Yes, exactly. He hasn't won one. Okay. So he's on 3. Okay, that's all I care.
Wow. All right.
That's right.
Rings, Trout.
Poppy from the Dan Le Batard Show throwing out the rings argument for Mike Trout.
Hit him with a little rings plus minus.
How about that?
By the way, Junior, I felt like the catcher's interference really would have put him over the top.
Well, I think so as well.
would have put him over the top.
That's a Hall of Fame credential.
You got a catcher's interference? Wait a minute.
Now he's the player of the week.
There you go.
Now that he's got the catcher's interference, he's
finally.
But he really is having maybe the greatest career, and no one talks about it. The only time anybody talks about Mike Trout is when he shows up at an Eagles game. Right? That's the only. Oh, look, there's Mike Trout. The only time anybody really talks about Mike Trout is when he shows up at a Philadelphia Eagles game, which is that may be the most Mike Troutest thing ever.
In the past week, he's gone 4 for 4, 4 for 5, 5 for 5, 2 for 4, 4 for 5, 4 for 5, 3 for 5.
Any catches interference in any of those?
Yeah, no, there was one catch interference.
Only one.
The one was a sacrifice fly, too, by the way, and just won 4 for 5.
If he'd gotten that other one, then we would have had him as player of the week.
I tell you, it's the difference. You 0 for 3.
You do you, Mike Trout.
0 for 3 in the playoffs.
Do you. All right, we continue with what's trending, and ladies and gentlemen, let's get it going. Hey, World Cup 2018. With a 1-0 win over Saudi Arabia, Uruguay advanced to the knockout round for the 3rd consecutive World Cup, thanks to Luis Suarez, his 4th career game-winning goal in the World Cup, the most in Uruguay's history.
All right, so we love the results of all this and watching the games, but the only thing that really matters is the fact our snake draft. Again, Trey has a team, I have a team, Mike and Devin have a team, and the staff has a team. We each have 8 teams. Yep. So Riley, you have the score right now, right? You have the updated score. Who's winning this? What do we got?
I do. I regret to inform you that you, Golic, are in last with 12 points.
I don't think you regret it at all. I think you're enjoying it.
You can turn your mic off and stop.
Okay.
Right now. All right, I have 12.
Staff,
no, keep
1
going.
point ahead of you at 13.
Yeah.
Who's that?
The staff.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Trey has 15 points.
Yeah, baby.
And our co-leaders, I guess, are Mike Jr. and Devin.
What do they have? Hey! What do they have 15 as well?
They have 17.
They have 17. Oh, wow.
So here's what we got going on today. I got a big win from Spain. Took them a while, but they finally beat Iran thanks to Diego Costa's 3rd goal of the World Cup. Here's what we got today. Denmark and Australia.
Right. So
I've got Australia.
Mike has Denmark. Mike and Devin have Denmark. You have Australia.
I'm not feeling good about Australia. Come on, Aussies, let's go.
Mike leading, Mike and Devin, he can extend that. So the next game at 11 is France against Peru. I have France.
You have France.
And the staff has Peru. And then at 2 o'clock, it's Argentina, which is a staff against Croatia, which is Mike and Devin again.
So it's going to be it's a big day for Junior.
Yeah, you guys could really open it up here. I don't have a whole lot of faith in Croatia in this one, I don't believe.
I don't know how you can have a lot of faith in Australia either. I mean, it was an island prison for a long time. You're really going to trust that group?
I have zero faith in Australia, but I have faith that I'm going to have a great time when I go there this summer.
There we go. Fair enough. Watch out for the snakes. There's a lot of poisonous stuff there.
Well, actually, that is so true. The most poisonous kind of almost every animal in the world is in Australia.
It's because it was a prison. They sent you there to die.
Listen, spiders, snakes, jellyfish.
Don't go walkabout.
No,
okay?
no. I'm staying on beaten paths.
Okay.
I'm not going off the beaten path. If the road forks, I'm going where the cement
is. If it's beaten, you're going on
paths
it. Yeah.
do look nice.
Exactly right. Oh, mercy. Hit it one more time. Everybody. Hey! And that's our World Cup update, ladies and gentlemen, in What's Trending. All right, Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. Protecting your small business is kind of a big deal. Mm-hmm. Cover what you've worked so hard for. Visit ProgressiveCommercial.com. So the World Cup is ongoing. Obviously, it's a huge thing. We just had the U.S. Open over the weekend. It was a very big thing. But tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have something else going on, the NBA draft. And the NBA draft is so much about the players that will be drafted and also about what happens to this guy.
From the beaches of L.A. to Houston. From Boston to the Bay. And to Cleveland. This is LeBron Watch.
So wrong.
And Cleveland.
So wrong.
So the question becomes, what is Cleveland going to do? Okay, they have the 8th overall pick, and as Brian Windhorst astutely pointed out, they're going to have to play their cards before they know the card that LeBron is going to play, whether or not he's actually going to stay or he's going to go somewhere else. And this is what the most recent headlines coming out of Cleveland from our Cavs reporter, Dave McMenamin, on what they're trying to do and not trying to do with one of the best players on the team.
They're heading into Thursday's draft with the intention of selecting a young playmaker that they will have on their team next year. And so that means that, of course, they're going to have their phone lines open for potential trade opportunities that come down the pike. But one thing I'm reporting today is that they are not actively shopping Kevin Love, and they are looking to add someone along the likes of a Colin Sexton or a Shea Alexander, perhaps Trae Young, Mikal Bridges, Kevin Knox. That's kind of the group of players, the tier of players that the Cavs will be expecting to be available at number 8.
So those are the players they're expecting to look at.
And again, this latest mock draft has Shea Alexander being the guy at 8, the guard from Kentucky that they would take.
So
we'll
if you're LeBron, you have your guy Kevin Love there. You have you and maybe a guy like Shea Alexander. You feeling good about
things?
I
mean, listen, I don't think he's worrying about the draft, that any guy they draft is going to be, wow, okay, there's the difference maker at 8, so now I'm going to stay. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think it's about what other players can they bring in, guys that have actually played and proven themselves that can help them get back to the championship again. I don't think the draft has anything to do with whether LeBron's staying or not, in my opinion.
The draft, and in conjunction with what Dave McMenamin reported there, that the Cavs aren't actively shopping Kevin Love right now, leads me to the only logical conclusion that this is really just the Cavaliers shopping for whoever the LeBron James is going to leave Kevin Love with here. Through all of the cruelty that Kevin Love has suffered throughout his tenure as the Cleveland Cavaliers, basically being the whipping boy for every sort of problem that's come up, now he's going to finally get the credit he deserves by being left high and dry in a post-LeBron Cleveland with Colin Sexton.
Or Shea Alexander.
And the one thing, they say they're not shopping Kevin Love, but they have talked to San Antonio about Kawhi, so you can't tell me that Kevin Love wasn't talked about there.
Correct.
You may not be shopping him openly everywhere else, but I guarantee you, if San Antonio said that's one of the guys they want, you damn well better believe that they would be getting him so Cleveland could get Kawhi Leonard back. But I don't think anybody believes that Cleveland has enough to pull that trade off.
It feels like that conversation went like this. So that Kawhi guy, here he may be leaving. Have you met Kevin Love?
Yeah.
And the Spurs said, Yes.
Yes.
And we're good.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of how that went down.
We've met him
right?
and all the other players that you have, and we're gonna look elsewhere, I believe.
Yeah, Dad, you said no one believes that would be enough. The Cavaliers are included in that bunch.
Exactly.
Dave reported that they reached out, and they believe the Spurs are going to be offered more robust packages. They don't believe that Kevin Love is a realistic guy.
The robust package.
A robust package, yeah. Those aren't normally words in conjunction with me.
Normally I hear that with the flavor of my coffee. It's robust.
There you go.
Yeah.
Or that sounds like an extra thing when you buy a car. Do you want the winter package or the robust
there
package?
You go.
That comes with the undercoating. So it seems like when it's all said and done, the Cavs are preparing for LeBron to leave, right?
I believe so.
It sort
because
of feels that way at this point.
Unless can they get? I heard Kemba Walker's name getting thrown. Now
Kemba!
The thought was around the trade deadline of getting someone like him as well to run the offense, and I have no idea where that would go. We certainly can ask our basketball people, but I don't think the draft. Any rookie that they draft is going to have any bearing on LeBron. I'll say it again, LeBron staying or going. It's going to be what veteran players can they bring in, and they don't have a whole lot of room to do a whole lot with that.
No, they don't. And so now it becomes interesting in looking at the two biggest names in the current offseason right now and the way that they've gone about this and how we perceive that. If there's any reason to perceive LeBron James and the Cavaliers having to sort of operate in the dark here,
right,
as opposed to, for all that's been said about Kawhi and the Spurs, him and at least his camp letting the Spurs know their intentions well before the draft so they can make decisions leading up to this important time of year. Is there value in one line of doing things over the other here?
Well, Kawhi has made his intentions clear. You're right. But again, it's up to the Spurs as to whether or not they want to allow those intentions to go forward. I mean, the Cavs did it last year.
Yes, they did.
The Cavs did it last year by letting Kyrie go. And we'll see if that happens indeed with Kawhi, who has made it pretty clear he wants to go to Los Angeles.
Golic and Wingo.
And Wingo.
Mm-hmm. Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr. Golic and Wingo with you on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, as it indeed is draft day. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line and give us a call. 860-506-5505. Who do you want your team to draft? Who do you think is going to be the most transcendent star?
There you go.
English. I'm told the words are hard. Let us know who you think is going to be the breakaway star in this year's NBA draft. Give us a call at 860-506-5505, and we'll have those for you a little bit later. But it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. And there's a couple of players we're trying to get the Straight Talk on, and we're not really sure about it. One of those will be the guy that's been rumored to be the number one pick, but it looks like he's not going to be now, Luka Doncic, who's coming over from playing from Real Madrid, and our own Fran Fraschilla with a very deep dive on what Luka is and maybe what he isn't, guys.
What he's doing in Europe is unprecedented. Think about this, guys. Since September 2016, he's played in 150 professional basketball games, and I would venture to say if the opponents he played against played college basketball, the opponents probably would have won 140 times and lost 10. So he's playing at a unique level. I see him as a high-level NBA starter, sometimes all-star. I don't necessarily see him as a transcendent player, but he's a very, very precocious, talented, great mind for the game, outstanding passer, good, not great NBA athlete, shooter, but has to work on it. Only shot 33% from three over the last 2 years. He's talented, but I'm going DeAndre Ayton all day long at number one.
Okay, so that was Fran on Freddie and Fitzsimmons. It seemed like a mixed bag.
It really
Mike,
did, because at first he was saying, okay, dude's been playing pro since 16 and playing against guys that if they were college guys would basically have an unbelievably great record, so basically better than college players. And this guy's player of the year, and this guy is playing incredibly well. Then on the other side saying, well, he's not the greatest NBA athlete of the world, could be a sometime all-star. The way he was building that up, I thought he was going to say this guy's going to come in and take the world by storm, especially at 6'8" and handling the ball the way he does. So I agree. There was kind of a mixed message going on there.
I mean, to me, the comp there sounds like a less athletic Ben Simmons with a jumper. Like this seems like who that guy is. A big guy who can bring the ball up the way he can, who can distribute to that level, isn't going to wow you at the rim. But you talk about the guys that he has gone up against, those kind of players. One specifically that everyone recognizes is Kristaps Porzingis. I know he said he wants to dunk on Kristaps in the NBA, but there are plenty of highlights of them, and you go and you watch the draft highlights of these guys, and you see a lot of it is Luka going toe-to-toe with Kristaps Porzingis and getting buckets and getting space and getting to the rim against an NBA caliber player and guy who is a rim protector in New York. So he's got that capability. Yeah, he's not going to blow you away athletically, but again, we talk about this in the NFL draft all the time, drafting best available versus need or fit or any of these things like that. Luka Doncic is the perfect fit for today's NBA. You've got all this upside and all these other tools that you can use with these other guys. It's just a matter of how does that fit in today's league in a way that wins you something meaningful.
But if you're hearing those words from Fran Fraschilla, are you more excited or are you less excited? Because he, like you said, he went on all this stuff. He did this and this. He's a okay NBA player. I mean, he'll be an occasional all-star.
I think he'll be a little better than okay, but
not transcendent.
I was waiting for a little more than that. So
right.
I was, and that's the thing about it is, even those of us, who are basketball fans, you can get a handle on the other guys, who played in college because we got to watch them. Luka Doncic, we see highlights. I mean, it's not like we can flip on the channel and watch his game. Correct. So you have to rely on the Fran Fraschillas and what others are saying about him, where the other players, at least that we can form our own opinion by seeing them firsthand and playing in their game. So I was a little surprised where that went, and I don't know if it would make me out because Fran he is supposed to be that overseas player guy that checks him out and really knows what's going on with them, and that I'm not gonna lie, gave me a little bit of pause
because he didn't give us a comp in the NBA.
Right.
I mean, we sat here yesterday and kind of ripped on those guys for comparing themselves to current NBA players. But if Luka had come out and just branded himself by saying, I think I'm like so-and-so.
I want an analyst to do that.
Or if Fran had done that, we'd have felt more comfortable. So I guess I'm trying to not necessarily excuse, because the more I thought about it, I'm with you. Like, comparing yourself to other guys is a bit misguided. But those comps do serve a purpose, because for all of us who have a hard time understanding those overseas guys, when you don't get something like that, all of a sudden you get that reaction, right?
I agree in giving us a comp. Okay, I'm not a big fan of the player giving himself a comp, or that Fran Fraschilla giving us a comp is going to help his draft status. I guess that's my point.
But you're saying it's changing people. Does it change your reaction based on hearing what you hear from Fran?
It may change my reaction, but the bottom line, my point has always been, it doesn't change the reaction of those who make the picks.
Well, yeah, no, I mean,
that's what I mean. No, but I mean, that's my point. When you're making those comparisons, I say, why are you making those comparisons? It's not, why do I need to hear that? Because it's not doing anything for your draft status.
For this reason, so that no one comes on and publicly questions, oh man, is this guy really going to have the impact that we think he can, because we all of a sudden haven't compared him to the right people?
We're going to disagree on that. I don't agree with that.
Well, I mean, I think you do. Like,
I don't agree with you, because you're talking about the regular person. I'm talking about the decision makers. It's not influencing
that's why I'm saying,
the decision makers.
That's why I'm saying you agree with my point that this does have an impact on the regular person, so there is value in those comparisons.
No, there's no value to it. It can influence my thought, but what's the value? What's the value to it? It doesn't matter what my value or my thought is, and just because I say that on national radio and TV isn't going to change a GM's mind. My point is, to the decision makers, it means nothing. To us,
hey!
To us, it can. It certainly can form my opinion, but my opinion doesn't matter.
And if it forms a larger opinion, then that can affect things off the basketball court for you. Dollars and cents, if the perception around you is all of a sudden, you know what, maybe this guy isn't really a star or someone we can buy into.
Take care of
maybe
that.
This guy isn't someone that we can market in this way.
Not buying it.
I'm just telling you, it affected the way that you thought about this enough to where there's value in that alone. If it's shaping conversation, right, wrong, or indifferent, there's value in that.
All right, I don't. We're going to disagree on that one.
By the way, thanks. I just got a little power nap. I appreciate it.
You did,
That
huh?
was wonderful.
I really did that
good.
for you, Trey.
Yeah,
you were dragging a little bit this morning. You helped me a lot with my swing yesterday.
We're all in this together.
By
the way,
you gave him a lot of chance to tweet over there.
If you want
Could you say that one more time?
If you want a comp, as a reference, Chauncey Billups says the comp for Luka is Joe Johnson. 6'7", 240, 7-time All-Star. So is Joe Johnson enough for you to take this guy in the top 3? That's the next question.
Wow.
If that's the comp, is that the guy you want taken with the top 3 pick?
Joe Johnson, was he changing a franchise?
I don't think so.
I mean, that's what you're looking for up at the top, aren't you?
Exactly right. I mean, that to me is the big thing. If you got to get a top 3 guy, it has to be a guy that's going to steer this franchise in a different direction. And can we say that Joe Johnson has done that?
Well, no, but Joe Johnson also came along in a different time in the NBA when he came into it. Now,
this kid fits more the NBA of what the NBA is. I agree with that.
Luka Doncic is coming into is a little more conducive to his skill set. I would say that, but you're right. Joe Johnson was by no means a franchise alterer other than altering payroll at every stop he went to.
And there ain't nothing wrong with that, by the way.
You're with the bank.
By the way, we'll have a lot more on the draft coming up a little bit later. Mike Schmitz, our ESPN draft analyst, will join us at 7:30. Dan Dockich will be here at the start of the 8 o'clock hour to talk about, a very difficult putt he made while doing a radio interview, and something else that's going on with the NBA draft as well. Mina Kimes, as you mentioned, Junior, will be with us a little bit later. And Kobe Jones, a former member of the U.S. national team, midfielder, will join us to talk about the World Cup, and we'll see if he can figure out whether Bruce Arena or Taylor Twellman is right and why things aren't going well for the U.S. and trying to build our soccer. And that is all Straight Talk, by the way, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. We'll get into the player who rewrote history books on this side of the Atlantic, too, and the comparison the comp that's being used with him, which is very interesting.
Golic.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night, no doubt about it.
And Wingo.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Golic Wingo podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030. Is your home an ADT home? If not, you have to get ADT and help protect against break-ins, fire, and carbon monoxide. For a limited time, get ADT's lowest rate starting at just $28.99 a month from the most trusted name in home security. Go to ADT.com/podcast to take advantage of ADT's lowest rate.
With 36-month monitoring contract, early termination and installation fees apply. Excludes taxes and fees. Applies to traditional services only. Certain markets excluded. Licenses available at ADT.com.
We put up at Golic and Wingo on Twitter, is there anyone else in the world you'd rather be than Cristiano Ronaldo? Again, he scored all the goals for Portugal in the World Cup. They're 2-0. Things are going well. He's a pretty good-looking guy.
Yeah.
Makes a whole lot of money.
Does things very well for himself.
He's kind of the man.
He's got it all going on.
Is there anyone else in the world you'd rather be? And the absolute first tweet we got was Craig. He said, to be honest, I'd rather be Ron Jeremy. Now, for those that are saying who, Ron Jeremy was a very, very famous porn star. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're at work, do not look him up.
Yes.
Turn off safe search if you do that.
Do not Google him.
Just not even anything. Not even moderate safe search. Just turn it all the way off.
So he is a porn star, to which immediately Trey said, I've got a great Ron Jeremy story. And I said, well, obviously not for air. And you said, no, it is. So your name's on the show, so that means you're allowed to, you get a little bit of leeway here, so go ahead.
Also, worth noting, kids are out of school now, so we've got no more parents carpooling on the way. We're in the clear right now.
We're good.
Go ahead. Ron Jeremy story.
You know, my first job in the business, I was a page at Summerbook. I was a page at NBC.
Yes, you were.
Which meant you gave guided tours of the building. You worked on shows like Saturday Night Live or the David Letterman show. Well, one of the responsibilities is you give out the tickets in the lobby for Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
People come by and claim their tickets. So I was working in the little booth there, and this woman comes up to me and says, yes, I have tickets for Saturday Night Live. And I'm like, okay, what's your name? And she gave me her name, and they weren't there under her name. And she said, oh, you know what? My brother left them for me. They might be under his name. What's his name? And she said, well, his name is Ron Jeremy. And I looked at her and said, Ron Jeremy? That name sounds really familiar to me. How do I know that name? Is he Ron Jeremy? She looked at me and goes, he's an adult film star. And I just went, here's your tickets. Here's your tickets, man.
It was her brother.
It was her brother.
Really?
But I'm like, oh yeah, I know that name. I know that name. How do I know Ron Jeremy? He's an adult film star.
He's a porn star.
And I just covered it. Here are your tickets, ma'am. Thank you. Enjoy the show.
Okay.
That was it. Very quickly.
Trey enjoys the whole catalog.
Yes.
Not just the hits.
Oh, my goodness. It was a long time ago.
Wow.
Let's move on to let's move on to the most interesting paragraph in ESPN.com history, please.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Let's be careful with the word long, too.
Okay.
Oh, hey now.
Anyway, the most interesting paragraph in ESPN.com history was written yesterday.
Yeah, it has to do with the Fanatic store, right? As you're talking about,
yes,
correct?
The Philly Fanatic.
Philly Fanatic shoots hot dogs out of the
hot dog cannon.
Yeah, hot dog cannon.
It's by the way, a story in and of itself that they've got a hot dog cannon.
It's fantastic. And they have to wrap the hot dogs in duct tape so they don't disintegrate when you shoot them out of the cannon.
Which means they're a little bit more of a projectile.
That's exactly right. So this, do you want to do your paragraph yet, or do you want me to say what happened?
Yeah, I'd like you to stop stealing from the paragraph that I'm going to read before I read it. So anyway.
Is there a comp for this paragraph? I just want to know.
Not yet. We're working on the comp right now. More of a range than anything else. But this is how they described what was going on with the Fanatic in the park. Using his customary launcher, the Fanatic sent a hot dog to fans behind home plate where Kathy McVeigh was sitting, battling a shoulder injury that will require surgery. McVeigh was unable to catch or deflect the hot dog, which was wrapped in duct tape so it wouldn't disintegrate upon launch.
Yeah.
All of that is real. All of that is a real paragraph that was on the front page of .com from me this morning. Baffled. Hot dog disintegration. The Philly Fanatic, the picture below it, throes of ecstasy behind the wheel of this hot dog cannon.
I would love to shoot a hot dog cannon. And again, you could see why they have to wrap it in duct tape, because it would just explode. It would never even make it into the stands, or you'd have hot dog shrapnel everywhere if you didn't wrap the thing. So she did. She had a bad shoulder, couldn't get her hand up to catch it. Hit her right in the face.
She got dotted. Yeah. She got dotted. She has a black eye. I'm looking at the picture right now.
She has a black eye. She's not, there's no lawsuit here. She's a big fan. She's not going to take any legal action. She did knock her glasses off. She had to put ice on and such. But how about that? Getting hit by a hot dog cannon.
I have a small hematoma in my eye, McVeigh said, and mostly it's going to get worse before it gets better. It's going to go down the side of my face. The Phillies have reached out to her on Twitter to apologize. They've offered her tickets to a future game when she wants to return. And she has a simple fan. Just be aware, because you never know. I understand a baseball, but not a hot dog. So which part of that paragraph, did he just totally steal your thunder on the disintegration?
Fair amount of it, yeah. The disintegration line was really that was really the coup de grace.
That's my fault. I take responsibility for that. She did say it gives people a good laugh, and if that makes somebody chuckle, then that's fine. She's a good sport about it.
Absolutely.
And wise advice, too, and her assessment of the situation was succinct, but I think spot on. It just came out of nowhere and hard.
Well, so I'd just like to wrap up maybe the oddest segment in the history of ESPN Radio.
Man, are you going to have a meeting after this show?
With the simple fact that somehow, some way, we got a hot dog launcher and Ron Jeremy in the same segment.
Wow, I never even thought of that.
Go figure.
Sounds more like a nickname than a headline.
There you go.
Wow.
Summerbook.
America, we're sorry. But not really.
I don't know if there's a way to regroup for
this,
so we're going to have to give it a shot.
You know what we'll do? We'll do a story about an apology after that apology.
Oh, okay, there you go.
So we'll get to that a little bit later and see if that works any better. Plus, we'll have more comps. We've got more comps.
Wow.
We've got comps on comps. All I know, if it's comped, I want it. We're coming back. Stay with us.
Golic and Wingo.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold. It's very interesting where that went.
So, 4 days after Phil Mickelson used the rules to his advantage or disadvantage, depending on which rule we're talking about in golf, which may be part of the problem here, he has issued a full apology. He says, I know this should have come sooner, but it's taken me a few days to calm down, Phil said in a statement. My anger and frustration got the best of me last weekend. I'm embarrassed and disappointed by my actions. It was clearly not my finest moment, and I'm sorry. For those that have been living somewhere else that don't know what we're talking about, Mickelson on the 13th green at the U.S. Open at Shinnecock Hills had a putt, and he was well out of contention. Had a putt, was about to roll off the green, and he sort of lumbered over to stop it and make a stroke while it was moving. And then, of course, afterwards he was defiant, saying, hey, I've had this penalty I've wanted to use for a while, a two-stroke penalty. I knew what the rule was, and if you have a problem with it, toughen up. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. And that did not go over well, especially when Ian O'Connor, who did a great job for us on ESPN.com, talked about his playing partner and the standard bearer, the guy that holds the scores of the group. Basically, they both heard Phil say to the scores official, I have no idea what I'm going to get on that. Just give me that. So what he said after the round didn't jibe with what he was saying at the time. And golf, of course, of its rules, nature, and the integrity of the game, blah, 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 went nuts. Is this over? Are we done? Are we moving on now?
Well, I think it's actually an interesting representation of what we were just talking about with what the people on the inside feel and think about something versus what the effect of the conversation surrounding it on the outside. Because you mentioned golf lost his mind. A lot of it seemed to be the world around golf media, former golfers maybe even that fall into that, but people that operate just outside of that inner circle. Because I know we've heard from now Rory McIlroy and Jordan Spieth, guys who are inside the machine still, who don't seem to share the same outrage.
Well, let's to that point. I have a theory on that. Let's hear what Rory had to say.
Honestly, I laughed. I thought there was a massive overreaction to it. I mean, knowing Phil, he knew what he was doing. It's a tournament that Phil's come so close to winning over the past few years. He's probably seen what's happened over the past few years at that tournament, and it's frustrated him because it's the only one that he hasn't won. Plus, it's probably becoming the hardest one to win for anyone because it is a bit of a lottery at times. So I don't know if I'd go to the lengths that he went to make a statement like that, but I thought there was a massive overreaction.
Well, there's two things there. I think what Rory is alluding to is what a lot of golfers will say privately and maybe not say publicly, which was, yeah, I wouldn't have done that, but maybe we're all just need to take a step back.
Well, listen, I tweeted immediately. I thought it was an unbelievable overreaction. And let me ask you this question. Yeah. You're the golfer of the group.
Now you guys play. I showed you video. You did
whatever. If he had come out right after and said what he said for his apology, said that right after, would this be over?
It would. Yes, it would have. I think it would have lanced the boil.
To my point earlier was his cover-up was worse than the action.
Well, yes and no. Yeah, but you're right. It was an egregious violation.
It was, but if he came out and said frustration, which we all knew.
Yes, exactly.
Frustration, it would have been, okay.
It would have made it a lot better.
You know what? He's human. It got the best of him. We all move on.
Right.
He didn't say that, so it intensified to one of three things happened. You got to believe. It hung on longer than he thought.
Yep.
So three things. His people who endorse him got on him a little bit. He really, truly realized what he did was dumb, and he got caught in what he said and what he said, which was different. Or his wife said, Phil, you're an idiot. Apologize. It was dumb what you did. So probably one of those things.
Yeah, probably one of those. And the first two in that kind of reinforce the idea public opinion does matter for something, because if it starts to blow back on your dollars and cents, that becomes real. And more importantly, the members of the media who come out with this outrage to start give everyone else. I mean, that's the way groupthink works, which is most people who are not experts in something look to experts. They look to analysts. They look to people in the media for an opinion that they can take and give to somebody else. So you have this domino effect that starts with someone in a position of power putting out an opinion that we hear may not be shared by the actual guys that everyone's saying, oh, this is going to affect the way his peers think about him. This is going to be a mark on his legacy. When in reality, it doesn't really sound like that for everybody.
Well, I think there are two things there. One, I think, look, Phil is not just an average player. He's a Hall of Famer.
Hall of Famer.
He's one of the best ever. He's got 5 majors. He's won 42 times on the PGA Tour. Those are insane numbers, especially those numbers in the Tiger Woods era. I mean, that to me, that puts those numbers in an even different category, because if Tiger Woods didn't exist, Phil may have 13 majors and 60 wins, okay? So I think his stature in the game amplified the mistake more than anything else. But to your point, Junior, I think that Phil knew that he played this very well. He has this thing where people see him as, hey, that's Phil. He's like us. They go out there and hack it up on the weekends. And he knew that would work in his favor with the public opinion, not with the opinion of people inside the media world or inside the golf center circle. And Tony Kornheiser on PTI, who, by the way, is a avid golfer and a huge golf fan, alluded to that as much, saying, hey, maybe I didn't gauge how this was going to be reacted by people besides me and Gus and guys inside this tight inner circle of golf.
It has two specific failings to me. One is it should have come much sooner. And two is that it did not really acknowledge his place in golf hierarchy. He's not just another guy. He's got 5 major championships. He's a Hall of Fame player. And the standards for him are a little bit higher than they are for anybody else. It's interesting to me. I do a podcast, as you know, because you've been on it. And at the end of the podcast, I read email from people. They crushed me on Phil Mickelson because I was very tough on Phil Mickelson, and they crushed me on that. Somehow he has become, with all of the money he has made, he has become the blue-collar darling of golf. People really like this. I thought the other day, when I saw it in real time, I thought it would stain him. I do not think that anymore. And I would tell you that other pro golfers, they have not lined up and condemned him at all. They haven't done it. I think he was wrong, but I think I have misread my own reaction. He's been crushed by the media, not by other golfers.
And I think that's a fair point.
It is fair. And you wonder, when you're playing with someone, though, Mike, are you a little less apt to crush someone while you're still playing? So I think the players of today still think what he did was wrong, but I don't know how far they would go in condemning Phil like some of the former golfers have done.
Yeah, and but to me, it all still seems so nonsensical. I mean, what do we do and sit around here every week when a golf tournament comes up? We wonder, what the hell's Tiger going to do in this tournament? How's this going to go? We're going to talk about a dark mark on someone's resume when we just completely ignore a much greater impropriety that we were privy to from the personal world of Tiger Woods. We have left that so far in the distance in favor of our thirst for him to be great that we act like if Phil goes out and is in contention for a tournament, we would ever bring this up again.
And here's
it'll move on. I think we'll move on.
That's what I mean. Like, if without this apology, we still would have moved on.
But here's a comparison. You talk about Tiger's personal life to something that happened on the golf course with Phil. Look at the Hall of Fame. Check out the character. We could do all the time about the Hall of Fame of some of those guys off the field.
Yeah, that's a different dynamic.
And then my point is a comparison. Look at what Terrell Owens went through to get in the Hall of Fame, and it was because it was on the field. Oh, my God, he wasn't a good teammate. Dude balled to Hall of Fame numbers. But you know what? He wasn't good in the locker room. Well, you got women beaters in the Hall of Fame that you don't really bring that up. Because but on the field, God forbid you disrespect that game on the field like Phil did on the putting green.
Look, I think the bigger issue here is that golf needs to have clarity of the rules, because the one rule that they used for a two-stroke penalty was he hit a moving ball. But the other rule that they could have DQ'd him for was stopping a ball from moving. Okay, those are two different things, and they could have applied either one. The moving ball rule is usually, let's say, in your backswing or something, your foot moves and the ball moves as you're hitting it, like it's on pine straw. That's really the two-stroke moving ball penalty. Stopping a ball from rolling off the green is not the way that rule is supposed to be interpreted.
Trey, I appreciate your passion for this. Yeah. I am pretty sure you're the only one that cares about that part.
Me too. Yeah, you started going down that.
I respect it. That, you are speaking for that inner circle Tony was talking about.
I agree. But the whole thing of this was Phil's ridiculous explanation after. It had nothing to do with the rule or whether you got DQ'd or not.
Well, yes, that's what got this on. But again, I think golf needs to figure this thing out. Okay, because we applied this rule, but you could have applied this rule, or you could have used this rule. If they didn't have. There's too many rules.
Yeah.
There's too many rules.
There are too many rules. A, I don't play enough to care, and B, I don't follow the rules.
Yeah, it's a lot easier when you don't.
By the way, I can't confirm both of those things having played with you yesterday.
Boom.
Okay.
How easily do I pull another golf ball out of my pocket when I don't like the one I hit?
As the other one was still in the air, which I thought was very impressive.
Golic and Wingo.
Let's not expect too much. There's only one person out there that's expecting way too much out of this guy too early. We know who that is. It's his father.
Everyone in the neighborhood knew about Bobby. Bobby, the basketball boy, they called him. Bobby wanted to go pro someday, so he was always out in the driveway shooting hoops. But one day, his mom came out and told him,
"Hey, your wife wants you to take out the trash."
His mom was visiting, and Bobby was a grown man. He had kind of missed his window. Plus, no one had ever seen him actually make a basket. But on the other hand, Bobby had heard how Geico could save him money on car insurance, so he switched and saved. So it was all good.
Mike, thanks for being with us. First of all, we've been talking comps all morning, so your comp to most people that would know is Todd McShay. You are the Todd McShay of the NBA draft, so we've got that comp taken care of. And Mike brought up a really interesting point, Golic did. What is the comp in the NBA for Bamba? What are we looking at? Is there a comp in him that you see all right in the NBA right now?
I think best case for Mo Bamba is going to be Rudy Gobert with a jump shot.
Wow.
I think if everything pans out for him, now he's going to have to improve his motor, continue to play with more toughness. But in terms of having a 7'10" wingspan, being a guy who protects the rim, has an incredible rebounding radius, his ability to switch on the perimeter as well, and he's added that 3-ball working with Drew Hanlon out in L.A., done a great job with his pre-draft process. To me, he's the most intriguing prospect in this draft, just in terms of combination of length, fluidity, ability to protect the rim, and then eventually step out to that NBA 3.
Now, I would imagine you take the Rudy Gobert as your favorite this year for Defensive Player of the Year.
With a jump shot.
Exactly. So we've been talking a lot about the players at the top, and we certainly will with you, but where do you expect and where do you think the first trade may happen?
I think it's going to be a wild night. It's hard to predict something like that. There have been talks of, Dallas trying to move up to get their hands on Luka Doncic, the Slovenian sensation. I think Atlanta is probably fielding a lot of calls just because that number 3 pick is really valuable. So, I think we'll see what happens tonight. It's hard to predict exactly what's going to happen, but those are the teams that, have been talked about throughout this process.
All right, draft analyst Mike Schmitz is with us on Golic and Wingo this morning. Mike, that you mentioned Doncic, and he was a guy that was talked about maybe taking the first pick overall because the Suns have a guy on their staff that used to coach him. Now it looks like they're settled in on DeAndre Ayton. We had a long take from Fran Fraschilla earlier today that said, hey, he's playing against players that are much better than college players. He's got 3 years of pro experience. He's got all of this. But then he sort of said, I'm not sure he's a transcendent superstar. So what do you think people are getting in, as you called him, which, by the way, was really nice, the Slovenian sensation, Luka Doncic?
I think he has the highest floor in this draft. At the very worst case, he's going to be an outstanding NBA starter, borderline all-star, just because of his production. Like Fran said, he's already played 3 full seasons. He's the MVP of the second best league in the world. I mean, college basketball, while it's a great product and a great platform, doesn't really hold a candle to the EuroLeague. I mean, this really is the second best league in the world. 6'8", can make every pass out of pick and roll, can shoot it off the dribble. I think you could make an argument that he is the best prospect in this draft. To me, he's certainly the best player. I would still take DeAndre Ayton at number 1, but given his productivity at the age of 19 against guys like Kristaps Porzingis, Ricky Rubio, the Gasol brothers, Yvonne Fournier, and then some of the best players in the EuroLeague, we've seen it from him pretty much at every level, and he has somewhat of a star quality. So I think you're getting a guy who can have an impact right away and then has, still more room to grow.
Mike, which player, and we talk about this in every draft out there, has the potential to fall a little further than we thought?
I think the biggest question mark in this draft is going to be Michael Porter Jr. It's really going to come down to the medical for him. Every team is different in terms of how they view, the medical information they get. Every doctor is different. But this is a kid who was at one point the number 1 high school player in his class before Marvin Bagley reclassified. He's 6'11". He can shoot it on the move. He's a big-time scorer, and he fits in the modern NBA. But questions about the health. He played, very few minutes. I think 53 minutes during this past season.
Yeah, but they were a great 53 minutes.
Yeah, he struggled a little bit in that stretch also. So I could see him, maybe it's Cleveland at 8. Maybe it's further down than that, but he's the most interesting storyline in terms of where he goes because I believe his range is fairly wide.
All right, with that in mind, every time, I'm just looking at footage of Mo Bamba, and I just see those arms. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. It's absolutely insane. Okay, if Porter was completely healthy, and you're the team that checks off that medical box, we think he's good to go. Talent-wise alone, how high would he go in this draft if there were no medical issues?
I think he's a borderline top 5 talent. To me, there's still a basketball question to be had about him, though. We've seen him dominate Nike EYBL. We've seen him at the FIBA Americas and Nike Hoop Summit Week. There was a time he was talked about as a potential number 1 pick, but we've seen players dominate that setting as well and then maybe get exposed a little bit in college. So I think there are still questions about, his ability to make others better, maybe a little bit of his toughness. But again, extremely talented, 6'11", can shoot on the move. It's hard to find a guy like that.
We saw Steph Curry go, number 7 in the draft and didn't see how great he would be, and now may go down as the greatest shooter in NBA history, and Trae Young is being compared to Steph Curry with his game. So how fair is that comparison, and where do you see Trae in this draft? He's another guy that I've seen in some projections falling out of the top 10.
Yeah, I think the comparison is fair in terms of the productivity, in terms of the style of play. Clearly the quick hitting threes, his ability to shoot it with, logo range, really. And I think he's probably the most underrated passer in this draft as well. He's as good of a passer as there is in this draft. So I think the comparisons are fair in some regard, but Steph Curry's development has been unique. And we're talking about arguably the greatest shooter of all time. He improved defensively. He improved his body. So, if Trae can become, 80% of that, then he's done an unbelievable job with his career. I think, anywhere from 6 to 12 makes sense. I think Orlando will give him a hard look at 6. They could really use a point guard. But there are 2 other point guards that, really are intriguing prospects in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and also Colin Sexton. So I could really see him going anywhere from 6 at Orlando to 12 with the Clippers. Talking
to Mike Schmitz, our ESPN NBA draft analyst, went to University of Arizona, so, likes that DeAndre.
There you go.
Number 1. We know that we just talked about a lot of the top names. Give us a name of a sleeper in your mind that we're going to be talking about in a few years.
I think it's Lonnie Walker from Miami. Now, he's not a, 30s or 40s pick. I could see him going just outside the lottery, but he's 6'5" with the near 6'11" wingspan. He's explosive, head at the rim type of athlete. He can shoot it on the move. He can defend 1s and 2s. And I think people are sleeping on him a little bit. He's going to be a much better NBA player than he was a college player. I think you really have to take into account each college situation when you're evaluating these guys, especially the one and dones. And his game is just built for the NBA. Like I said, every move he makes on the perimeter is an NBA move. So it's hard to find guys with athleticism, length, who can shoot it in a variety of ways.
Lonnie Walker projected in the latest mock draft to go number 12 to the Clippers.
And we'll see how that shakes out. Mike, we appreciate you getting up early with us this morning. It's going to be, as you said, a wild night, and we'll look forward to seeing what happens when the NBA draft gets going at 7 on ESPN, ESPN Radio, and the ESPN app. Mike, appreciate you being with us.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Golic
makes me want to vomit and then punch you square in the face.
And Wingo.
Oh, he's saucy today. Mina, thanks for being with us. You did a deep dive on Luka Doncic recently for ESPN the magazine. So what did you come away with? Who is this guy?
Well, I think the first thing, he's actually really known. He's probably the most known quantity in the draft because he's played so much basketball. And unlike pretty much every other prospect in this draft, he's actually played basketball against NBA players. In the Eurobasket tournament, you got to see him compete with guys like Ricky Rubio, the Gasols, and Kristaps Porzingis, who I highlight in my story. All of whom came away extremely impressed by him, and his team, Slovenia, went on to win the tournament. So you actually have a really large sample size for Doncic, and what he's done in Europe, the production, the numbers he's put up are completely unprecedented.
So we certainly learn more and more about the basketball side of it. What about him? We've heard who he wants to date, things he wants to buy, like a tiger in here.
Who doesn't want to do those things, by the way?
What about him off the court a little bit?
I saw the dating thing. I think he said Jennifer Aniston. People were like, "This is a 19-year-old kid," and I was laughing because when I met him, he had just finished watching the entire run of Friends. So he was asking me about New York. I think it helped him with his English a little bit. He's a big Netflix guy. But he is very much, I keep saying this, very much a 19-year-old. And he was actually 18 when I first met him, which makes what he did in Europe, what he did at Eurobasket, all the more incredible. You know, EuroLeague MVP at 19, something that doesn't happen every day. But he speaks very good English. I think he's very ready to move to the U.S. because another thing that's unusual about him and a little bit different from the other prospects is, he moved away from home when he was 13 to Spain from Slovenia. So he's been living away from his home country pretty much his whole life.
You're in New York right now. Is there a fire alarm going on? What's happening? I'm concerned for you right now.
I know. I'm a little bit concerned, too. I'm in a hotel room, and I suddenly... Okay, we're good now.
Oh, you're good. There it goes.
By the way, let's make sure that Luka knows that Central Perk is not a real place. Yeah. Right? We want to make sure that he doesn't go to the coffee shop and look for Chandler. I mean, that would be a really bad thing if that was his first move.
Hey, I'm hearing the Knicks are trying to trade up, so it's not out of the realm of possibility.
That is amazing. Again, we're talking to Mina Kimes from ESPN, the magazine, had an extensive article on Luka Doncic. And again, so we don't know much about him, but in the EuroLeague, obviously, is he considered the greatest player ever in that league?
Well, for his age. Okay, so, we are able to take the numbers, take the statistics, everything he's done there, and translate them and compare them to how some of the great European prospects of the past, Rubio, for example, Porzingis, Jokic, et cetera, come here and what they did. And based on those projections, he easily exceeds them. And in fact, based on the projection system developed by R. Kevin Pelton, he's the strongest prospect since Anthony Davis.
That sounds like that's a very strong comparison. We've been all in on comps this morning.
Yes, we have.
We're trying to get people to give us comps. So Anthony Davis is an excellent one. But what are the reservations? We had Fran Fraschilla. He was on ESPN Radio early, and he basically said he's done all these great things. The guys he's playing with would have gone 140-10 if they had played college basketball. The level of competition was great. And then he said, but I'm not sure he's a transcendent star. So it sounded like he was building him up. And then there's still some reservations, it seems like, from what Fran's evaluation.
So the comp, or the negative on Luka, rather, is pretty easy. And the reason why teams, fans, owners, et cetera, have reservations is simple. It's the athleticism. He's not a transcendental athlete. We know this. He's 19. He's a good athlete. He's a big guy. He's really dense, and he could easily, I think, be an average NBA athlete, but he's not a DeAndre Ayton. He's not a Marvin Bagley. So when people look at him, they see a guy whose ceiling is whose floor is pretty high. He's not going to be a bust. Almost nobody I spoke with thinks that. The question is, how high is his ceiling given his athletic limitations?
Now, again, he's been a pro for a few years, but not in the NBA and in this world out here. So, like Kristaps Porzingis and others who have come over from Europe who've had family members come over and live with them to help the transition or to be in it more together as a group. Is Luka going to do that? Is he coming over here alone? Do you know if he's bringing anybody with him?
He's coming with his mom, who's been living with him in Madrid for a couple of years. But I think the transition point is a really good one because a lot of European players who struggled when they came to the U.S. in the past, especially in the 80s and 90s, struggled for cultural reasons. They weren't really ready to be here. I think you're seeing that less and less. But it would be great for Luka, in my opinion, if he ended up on a team, with an older European player like a Dallas, where he could be around someone who mentors him.
Well, again, let's make sure he's not getting all those cultural references from Friends because that's about it. I mean, look, I love the show, but I'm just concerned they may be a little dated as Luka tries to move into this realm. So, as we look at him, what was away from the court? What was the most interesting thing you found about him as a person?
I think just how young he seemed,
right.
Which sounds weird, but when you watch him play, so I watched him play a lot of basketball before I met him, and he plays like a 28-year-old, right? He's so mature, and a lot of that has to do with the league he plays in, who he's been around. Real Madrid is like the third of Europe, okay? So that's an extremely, extremely sophisticated system. And then you meet him, and he's super competent, and then you meet him, and he's very much 19 and plays video games all day and drives a Porsche, like an electric blue Porsche. So he is, I think, he reminds me almost of a normal American teenager in a lot of ways.
I like that, except for on the court, which is probably the most important thing, to be that heady on the court.
So
older.
It sounds like what you're saying is he's a youngster, but he's kind of an old soul on the court. Is that the best way to describe it?
Yes, he certainly plays with the confidence of someone who is much older than 19, especially what you saw in a lot of, his team just won both Eurobasket and the ACB League, which is crazy. And what you saw, I think, was just the confidence, his willingness to take that last shot, which is very unusual for a 19-year-old.
So as it sounds like the alarm is going off again.
Mina, get out! Get safe!
I think we're okay.
I need to go really one more specific question. You said he plays the video games. The hot game now is Fortnite. Do you know what video games he's playing?
He does play Fortnite, and he's big on Overwatch.
Oh, there you go.
There it is. And does he play any FIFA?
Everybody. FIFA too. No, absolutely.
Everybody. Mina, I'm concerned.
Get out of the room.
Get out of the hotel. Go. Fly. Be free. All right. Mina Kimes, ESPN the magazine. Thank you.
This has been the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast. You can listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or just ask your smart speaker to play Golic and Wingo. Plus, you can check the guys out live weekday mornings from 6 to 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN News.